live for another edition. Welcome to another episode of Melanated News You Can Use. I'm your host, Lady Lila Brown, and I'm bringing in some international news, my favorite story of the week. Reporting from Los Angeles. I'm still here, broadcasting, covering Mayor Karen Bass. Got some other things that are going on around the country and around the world that I just can't wait to discuss, but I'm excited about what's happening in the city, international things. Let's go. So I just want to check everything, make sure we're going for a smooth broadcast here. And I'm going to take some time to invite my friends in. And I'm going to get started right away with the address from the United Nations Ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield. So she visited. I just wanted to make sure everything was still going smooth. So I hope that was a good intro. I was really trying to make sure everything was working, but we're live here. And great. So I just want to keep the broadcast going, and I wanted to get into my top story. I'm gonna invite my people in. Let's go right into it. So the United Nations ambassador, the U.S. representative, this star represents us. So if you may remember from the Trump administration, that was Nikki Haley, who, that woman is wild. So I don't even want to get into that, but Nikki Haley is now running for president, and it was very problematic. And so I really do appreciate the ambassador coming to Los Angeles. I'm so honored to have the opportunity to sit in with the delegates and all the honored guests and listen in to her address. I was hanging on to every word. I'm working. I'm behind the scenes. I'm letting you guys know this is so fun, just covering all of this. But I'm listening, and then she got to her fifth pillar, which you'll hear. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. And she mentioned Sudan. And for anyone that's been following my broadcast, first and foremost, I thank you. But you know that Sudan is very important to me, so I'm glad to hear it. And I wanted to share that with my international friends and community, just to let you all know the United States response. Her number one pillar and this number two pillar, which they're all very important, but number one, number two is food and water and security, in that order. So I want to know if we're supplying food around the world, where's the sourcing coming from? But we'll continue to investigate, and we'll get into some sustainable development goals, because that is so important. And all this is tying into climate change, and it is summertime in Los Angeles, so we got to be mindful of that as well. So we'll go right over to the clip. It is a speech that I wanted to share, and during the speech, I'm going to take some time to invite my people in. Hope you enjoy this broadcast. Thank you to everyone that donates and supports. And I even had a situation where I had to call my mentor this week. Got my entry into public affairs through Atlanta, Georgia politics. Whew, that was a good run. And just had to thank her. And it was so interesting because my mentor was just so happened to be in Washington, D.C., still working. And just a little bit of background about me. So I do like to tout my credits. I know it's something, but look, because I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm just in this really interesting world. But I remember, writing press releases for the Jimmy Carter Presidential Center, the Atlanta Press Club. As an intern, I was meeting governors. So this stuff is highly intriguing to me, and that's why I do have to keep the Clarence Thomas story going, because I met Clarence Thomas as an intern. And you know what? Come to think of it, I may have been the only liberal in the room at this time. Maybe myself and my mentor. I don't even know. I was amongst Georgian whites. So I could have been the only liberal Democrat in the room. That's why I didn't get out and go to California. But, good work is good work. And so I think I'm going to do an update or some type of social media where, because I always share about when I met celebrities, I am going to discuss when I met Justice Clarence Thomas as an intern in college. and my experience with him. So I do want to share that. And this is interesting. I never thought I'd be here in 20 or 30 years, but we're here. So, my goodness, I'm going to make sure everything's going smooth. Please comment, like, share. Welcome to another broadcast, and let's go. Let's go. I think I'm ready. Um, yeah, I'm excited about this story, and I'm excited that I was able to meet this amazing. Not oh, I didn't even get a chance to meet. I was in the. I got to witness. I got to witness. So here we go. This is the U.S. Ambassador to United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Good afternoon. Please. Wow. Thank you so much, Mayor Bass, former Congresswoman Bass, friend. Thank you so much for hosting me here. I'm really delighted to be here in Los Angeles, to be here in the beautiful Getty house, and to be among so many friends. I have to tell you that Mayor Bass is sorely missed, and I kind of trip over Mayor because I still want to call her Congresswoman. I've known her as that for so many years, but the mayor is sorely missed in DC. Her engagement on international issues, on Africa, while serving in Congress, you're sorely missed. But we accepted your call in Los Angeles to bring her back here as mayor. And I'm watching every day her activities, and she really is making all of us proud in New York. So I was going to say, let's give her a hand of applause, but you did. So, I thought I would get away from the United Nations and head to Los Angeles to rub shoulders with the stars. I'd see Barbara Streisand at some trendy wine bar in Malibu, or maybe I'd run into Beyonce on Rodeo Drive. A girl has to dream. But here I am, almost 3,000 miles from the UN Security Council, in another room full of diplomats. So that tells you who I really am. I'm one of you. But all jokes aside, I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled that the mayor brought us all together. And it's truly an honor to be amongst so many distinguished diplomats from the Los Angeles Consular Corps. And especially because I started out my diplomatic career as a consular officer in Jamaica. The lessons I learned during that posting still guide my work today. And more than anything, during my time as a consular officer, I learned that foreign policy is about people. Not just the people in the capital city, but in every corner of the country you're serving in. What you do, unlike your colleagues in Washington and New York, is take foreign policy to the people. That is what I'm doing in my current job and what I've done throughout my career, from my time in Jamaica to my last overseas posting in Liberia. Too often, leaders and diplomats take a macro level view of foreign policy, and they lose sight of the needs of the most vulnerable. And we certainly have seen this mayor take on that responsibility. At a time when people around the globe face amazing challenges, millions of people have been pushed to the brink, we need to stay focused on what really matters most: the security, the prosperity, the dignity of each and every person everywhere in the world. And this brings me to what I'd like to focus on today. And I'd like to look at 5 global challenges that demand global solutions: food security, water security, the climate crisis, protracted conflicts, and attacks on human rights. So let's look at the global food security crisis. As we speak, more than 345 million people are suffering from high levels of food insecurity. And this is a five-alarm emergency. From day one, the Biden administration has taken on this crisis with urgency. We've committed billions of dollars to address food insecurity, and we've brought this issue to the top of the UN's agenda. Food security, particularly ending famine, will be the focus of the United States' upcoming presidency of the Security Council. And this has been my focus for every year that I have been there since I started this job. This will be the third time that I will be serving as president of the Security Council. Of course, no country can solve a crisis of this magnitude alone, which is why we've called on every country to do more and to give more. This is a humanitarian imperative, and it's a security imperative. After all, food security is national security. The second issue, water insecurity, and I know in Los Angeles, this is something that people face every single day. Estimates should suggest that almost half of the world's population will suffer severe water stress by 2030. This is a dire crisis, one that hits women and girls the hardest. During this year's UN Water Conference, I announced that the United States is committing $49 billion toward equitable, climate-resistant, resilient water and sanitation investments. We are working to build a future where safe water flows freely for all. But again, we cannot do this work alone. We're counting on other countries to step up. And we're counting on the private sector to invest in the water supply and sanitation sectors. The third and fourth issues I want to discuss are the climate crisis and protracted conflicts around the world. And we've tried on several occasions since I've been in the Security Council to connect those two issues. We've not succeeded because two countries on the Security Council don't see climate as contributing to insecurity. But it's no secret that our planet is warming at a rapid pace. Earlier this month, the world experienced the hottest day ever recorded. The climate crisis is not a crisis of the future. It is already here. And we see that in Los Angeles, where climate change has increased the frequency of extreme heat and floods and wildfires. And I want to give the mayor kudos. I want to give kudos to LA for being so forward-thinking on climate, particularly for continuing to work toward the goals of the Paris Agreement, even when the last administration withdrew U.S. support. Being part of this landmark international agreement, as we once again are, is critical because this crisis impacts every single person in every single country, and especially the global south. We know that the climate crisis is making it harder for farmers to grow crops. And we know the climate crisis is increasing pollution in water systems and decreasing water availability around the world. Both the water crisis and food security crisis have also been exacerbated by conflict, including the war in Ukraine and fighting in places like Sudan and Syria and Yemen. Since Russia launched its brutal war of aggression against Ukraine, its forces have weaponized food. Russia has turned Ukraine's rolling wheat fields into battlefields. It has deliberately attacked Ukraine's agricultural infrastructure. And just this week, Russia suspended its participation in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, an arrangement that has helped lower food prices and feed the world. It was a shameful act of cruelty. which followed Russia's decision to block cross-border humanitarian aid from reaching Syrians who are in dire need. Syrians who are suffering from conflict, Syrians who have gone through the horrible experience of an earthquake that devastated their country. The bottom line is this: where there is conflict, there is hunger. Where there is conflict, there's water scarcity. We all have a responsibility to push for the just resolution of war. We must do so for the good of those trapped in conflict zones and for the good of the entire world. The final issue I want to raise is today's attack on universal human rights, especially from authoritarian leaders. In Sudan, we're beginning to see reports using the dreaded word genocide to describe the situation in Darfur. In Ukraine, women have endured rape, torture, and killings by members of the Russian forces. In North Korea, we continue to see state-led repression of the fundamental freedoms of much of the population. And in China, the government has committed genocide and crimes against humanity against Uyghurs and members of other ethnic and religious minority groups in Xinjiang. Tragically, the list goes on. And we know gender-based violence and the oppression of women persists around the world, in Iran, in Afghanistan, and elsewhere. This December, we will mark the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document that enshrined the values on which the United Nations was founded. And while the world has made great strides since then, clearly our work is far from finished. So we must stand together to uphold the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and call out anyone, anywhere who tries to roll back our hard-earned progress. This is how we fight for security and dignity of all, everywhere in the world. This is how we honor the UN Charter, which calls on all of us to address issues of peace and security. Now, I know this is a daunting list of challenges, and believe me, it is not the only list. There are many other challenges that we face. But the good news is this: we do have the power to address all 5 of these challenges, especially as we approach the Sustainable Development Goals Summit, which will be held at the UN in September. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs, are the world's blueprint. It's a blueprint for building a more just, a more secure, and a more prosperous future for the planet. They are sort of our guiding light, our guiding principles. Unfortunately, the international community has fallen behind on many of these goals, and on some, we've actually backtracked. And that's what makes the upcoming summit so important, and that's why the United States is committed to driving progress forward on all 17 SDGs. In this work, we have a strong partner in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you, Mayor. LA is at the forefront of efforts to invest in clean energy, tackle hunger, root out gender equity, deal with the housing issue, and advance other SDGs. These efforts have been detailed in the city's 2 voluntary local reviews. And LA is the first city in the world to report SDG data at the indicator level through the open source platform. Mayor Bass, we are grateful. We're grateful to you and this city and your team for your continued leadership on the SDGs. You're an inspiration. You're an inspiration to the leaders of other cities around.
It was a great speech. I really did enjoy it. She was amazing.
As diplomats, you are the foundation of foreign policy. You understand better than anyone the impact geopolitical decisions have on people, and you are key to our efforts to tackle food and water insecurity, address the climate crisis and conflict, safeguard universal human rights. By working together, we can give hope to humanity. Thank you.
I love. So we're here, and I was the UN ambassador representing our United States, and appointed by the Biden Harris administration, and she was sworn in by Madam Vice President, appointed by President Biden. So I had to get that, and I really did enjoy her speech. So I'm gonna go right over to some things that I was able to do for the Hollywood writer strike that is going on right now. So then the writers are striking, and then the same negotiation breakdown is happening with the actors as well. So now the actors and the writers are both on strike. Production ceased to exist. It was literally midnight. Decision, no deal made. We're on strike. Boom. Production shut down in real time throughout. So just, from time to time, I'll be making sure that we're still good here. And hopefully, you're enjoying the broadcast. Great. So we're live. And what I'm doing with every episode of Melanated News You Can Use, I share some of my favorite stories. But, aside from going and showing some of my favorite content as well. So, again, I appreciate all my clients, all my partners, those that help keep this broadcast going, and they contribute in so many different ways. So I do appreciate that. I always have to say thank you to those that make the monetary investment in donations to make sure the upgrades continue. So, we are a public relations news agency here, LB Media Group. I'm giving you the call letters, the titles. I'm letting you know what it is. And so we're going to keep this going. So I cannot just get out of this international story and opportunity without talking about Sudan. So I have just a short reminder of what's happening. And from time to time, there's updates. We don't always have daily updates because things are in motion, and we do want to respect the privacy of I don't even want to call them, I almost call them refugees. People having to flee. And then, times where they want to go back, or maybe those that weren't able to get out, or you have to go back and get some more people out. So I had to catch myself there. And so I also want to know about the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, UN DRIP, UNDRIP, some people may call it. And now that we have some diversity and representation to the United Nations, what do you think has been going on for the past 400 to 600 years here? It's been exactly genocide. So at what point do we start to reel that in? So many questions. She brought up these pillars. I'm going to be watching these sustainable development goals. That's great. Climate change and all these other things. But what about the genocide and human rights abuses that's happening right here in these United States? That has rendered indigenous people homeless, evicted on their own ancestral homeland. So I'm going to keep the story going. I do want to check back in with Sudan. So thank you as we shoot over to the next clip. And so I always give full speeches on my broadcast. So I know for some things that are happening, this is lives lost, and people need this information. So I remember when they were having the humanitarian efforts blocked in Sudan, and I, at least on my broadcast with my open permissions, was able to help disseminate some news information about the ceasefire and where, like, the Meroe airport being shut down. That was devastating. So almost you would have to go to Khartoum. And so the humanitarian aid travel on the ground. So these are extremely important issues. Los Angeles being a sanctuary city, and the UN ambassador speaking to the Los Angeles Consular Corps. Um, the consulates, I think there's over about more than 90. I believe that's the number. Maybe even up to 97, something around that, 94 to 97 consulates right here. That's a lot. So bear with me here as we go over, because as you would see in the speech there, I played that speech on top of the broadcast for a reason. As you heard, the ambassador was noting human rights abuses. So we'll get right over to it. So we'll go right over to our story here. And thank you again for tuning in. Please, hearts, give heart emojis. Give me lots of thumbs if you can. If you can see, like, for an example there, that helps. Share the video. Share it in your messenger as well. And we're gonna go right over to the clip. Thank you so much. I always want to make sure that we're good here. I want you to have a pleasant listening and viewing experience. So thank you. And human rights violations. A group says women and girls are being kidnapped in Sudan. So I'll be trying to tell y'all what's going on, and I try to warn y'all. So this is why we have to pay attention to what's going on with the Janjaweed and Boko Haram, and know that all that coddling, domestic terrorism is bad. You gotta stay aware.
Organizations in Sudan also say they're monitoring increased violations against women and girls. They say victims are being kidnapped from Khartoum and then being sold in several areas of Darfur. One youth group says that fighters from the Rapid Support Forces are involved. It says it's concerned that the violations could also extend to the rest of the country. Well, let's go to our correspondent, Hiba Morgan, in the capital, Khartoum. Hiba, the situation in Darfur has been deteriorating for months. Can you give us a sense of what's happening there now?
Well, while most of the violence over the past few months has been focused in West Darfur, this time we're seeing increased violence as fighting continues between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces in South Darfur, specifically in the city of Niala. Now, there are still many civilians who stay behind in Niala, unable to flee from the conflict between the two sides. The Darfur Bar Association said that 16 civilians were killed, including a family where nearly all of the family members were killed, with the exception of one. And they say that those who have fled to displacement camps are not safe either, and that they're concerned that other people who have been previously displaced as a result of the fighting in Darfur that has been ongoing for 20 years will not have anywhere to go to. So they've urged both sides to end the fighting to protect civilian lives. But they say that the fighting does continue, that civilians remain to be caught up in the crossfire, falling as casualties as a result of the fighting, with nowhere to go to, especially because the violence seems to be surrounding them from every side.
Hiba, and we know that fighting is also continuing, not only in Darfur, but elsewhere in the country too.
Yes, we've seen airstrikes here in the capital, Khartoum. There's been airstrikes in the northern part of the capital. There's also airstrikes in the southern part of the capital between Khartoum and Jazeera State. That's a state in the central part of Sudan. Sudanese army sources say that they were targeting a convoy of the paramilitary rapid support forces that were trying to head to the central part of the country.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm going to get rolling very, very heavy. We're back. So a lot of power going on over here. So trying to keep everything going. Lots of upgrades and changes. So thank you for those that watch on YouTube, because I put this all together and it goes out on YouTube. So I'm just making sure we got everything up and running here and trying to keep the broadcast going and keep all the stories that I'm putting out. Give you some context, let you know what I'm working on, and that's pretty much that. So hopefully everything's still good and going. But I'm going to pop in from time to time, play some of my favorite clips. So you'll see me on my various social media feeds, give me some promo footage. But really everything kind of comes together pretty much on my YouTube and my website, ellabmediagroup.com. So there I get more in depth. I give links. I just try to give as much information as possible. But that's why I'm so thankful for those that, make donations along the way and help me out, because it's a lot of storage, it's a lot of data. As you can see, this is a very heavy broadcast. So for the top of my show, we went into the United Nations, the U.S. ambassador, which listed pillars of challenges. But you can't, just talk about challenges or actually some solutions. So her human rights citation there, going over to Sudan and everything that's happening there, it's not getting any better. So I shot over to an Al Jazeera clip in which Heba Morgan reported that there are women and girls that are being kidnapped. And this is coming from the rebel forces. This is coming from all the conflict in the area, taking advantage of the situation. A lot of people are not able to flee. They are indigenous to the area. There's no other place for them to go. They have no other outside connections. And so that the human rights abuses and the word genocide being used there. And these people are not able to flee. And so the ongoing strife is very hard to kind of just put out there. So I'll probably just let that first segment be, we got the report from the United Nations ambassador. We got an update from what's happening in Sudan. So that's why I shoot over to other clips and, it's a lot of power going. This is a good operation we got going on here. So when I shoot over to other videos, try to make it relevant, everything that's going on. Just give you all an update what's happening with me. So I try to broadcast here out of 4K, keep it real clear and nice for you all. But pretty much that was my report. I'm going to make sure that I can, stay charged up here and figure out what's going on with all my technology. But yeah, that was pretty much only the main reason I'm going to get that story logged. I'm going to put it on my website, some pictures, and also the ambassador met with some young people, some students, and she talked about giving back in public service. So, really good trip. I wish we could have more time to really, but we got some places to start. We got, the 17 sustainable development goals, and then we got the 5 pillars, and also understanding that the challenges are interconnected, unfortunately. So Los Angeles, we'll see how it'll be a player there. So just very short. I'm going to keep trying to roll my broadcast in and out. Just doing a lot of, testing this weekend and putting it out there, and just a lot of information. So I like putting up just some raw clips for you to check out. A lot of full speeches we do here. Hopefully you will find that to be beneficial, because I just don't want to extract, and just, you need the full context. You need to know what's going on before, after, and while these things are ongoing and continuous. So yeah, I want to be able to keep rolling 4K here, but it is what it is. So great. So I don't think I have any, let's see, try to keep this going. Well, yeah, I'll just end it there. I'll just, put this all together, and that's pretty much my report. I want to really focus on some international issues there. And in my next, we'll go into some of the things I was able to do with Hollywood and sports, which is my favorite subject to cover. Some of the politics stuff is really, really heavy, so unfortunately. But yeah, other than that, the reparations task force report is in. That's huge. So the reparation recommendation proposals, I break it down based on issues. And since Los Angeles is in a state of emergency with the housing crisis and homelessness plaguing the area, I focus pretty much on that. So I think it's time to open up a little bit more into the reparation proposal, because these things will be reviewed, it's being discussed, it's 1,000 pages. For some people, it's just too much to go through. That's why a lot of people shy away from politics, because there's a lot of information, and sometimes it makes sense out of it. So we will tackle these issues, we will talk about these numbers, we'll discuss the challenges, suggest the solutions, and just really look at this in a more comprehensive way, as opposed to the small bite-sized content. We try to do long form here. So I'll put all this together. This should be really, really good. Trying to just keep everything running, get the information, let's dissect it, let's discuss it, and everyone's commentary is really appreciated. So and some stories kind of phase out on their own, and it's not as pressing. So we can't always get to all of the top stories. Some things are just useless. A lot of sports entertainment stories